Hello, Nathan here with PixelPipes, and this is my Windows 98 system, and it is in desperate need of a rebuild. So yeah, this is just a simple kind of blog style video. Excuse the mess in the background, I'm just kind of shooting this off the cuff here, but yeah, this is a system I use to benchmark in Windows 98, and I mean, it's a good system, but there's a few things I want to fix and improve with it. So currently I have a Athlon XP 3000 Plus in here, and it's a very good processor. It's the 333 megahertz front side bus version. You know, it has, in this board, it's got universal AGP, which is really good, fast processor with that style, with that type of AGP slot. But this board has some problems. It's a very good board. It's a shuttle board. I don't remember the model number, but it's using a KT333 VIA chipset. Unfortunately, the condition that it's in right now, it actually cannot run the Athlon XP 3000 Plus at its stock frequency. I have to actually clock it down in order to run stably or to even finish being able to boot Windows. So that's something I'll be looking to fix in the future. I'm not like getting rid of the board or throwing it out or anything crazy like that. It's totally fixable. I know exactly what caps I need. But I actually don't want to use this board for this system. It does not work with the Rage Fury Max. And the reason that is important is because, well, I'm not done with the Rage Fury Max. I have the card, I still want to do more things with it, and I just don't like not having a system that can actually run with the card, or, you know, not being able to test the card in any of my setups. So we're going to go with a motherboard that I know does work with the Rage Fury Max, and that's this one, the Asus A7S333. This is based on a SIS chipset. Now, the only limitation to this one is it only supports Athlon XPs with a 266 megahertz front side bus. So the fastest CPU that this can support is the 2600 Plus at 2.1 gigahertz. Of course, that processor being the fastest available on, you know, in that configuration, is going to be more expensive. It's going to command a premium on eBay. So the smartest thing to do is to go with this guy right here. This is the Athlon XP 2400 Plus. Yeah, the 2600 Plus is only like 6% faster than this, and yet this one can be had for, you know, $10 to $15, you know, if you're patient. So yeah, instead of spending, you know, what, 40 or whatever dollars for the 2600 Plus, you could just get this one, and it's very nearly as fast. This one's running at 2 gigahertz. So I'm gonna put this in here. Originally, I had bought a 2400 Plus mobile processor, which used a Barton core, and those are popular because they have an unlocked multiplier. They're really overclockable, and they run at a 266 megahertz front side bus. So that was my plan. Unfortunately, that does not work very well on this board. While we're at it, we're going to change out the power supply in the system as well, because I desperately need to do that. This power supply is terrible. I've used it for way too long. I don't even know the brand. It's, I think, Best Tech. It's a 250 watt power supply. I think it came out of an OEM system at some point. Doesn't even have a power switch in the back. It's pretty awful. So we're gonna switch it out with a Thermaltake Pure Power. Don't fall, don't fall. This was a very popular power supply back in the early 2000s. This one is a 430 watt or 420 watt power supply, and this has a crazy 40 amps off of the 5 volt rail. which is literally perfect for Athlon processors that are very power hungry off of that rail. And we're not gonna stop there, you know. I've never actually had a sound card in my retro system, at least not since I had a Sound Blaster 16 ISA card, which had some clicking issues. So I'm going with this one right here. This is a Aureal Vortex 2, which has DOS compatibility, also has a wavetable header right here if I wanted to get some really good sounding general MIDI audio out of this. So I could actually use my Windows 98 system for DOS games if I want to with this card. It's also excellent for Windows 98 modern games. So this is a very popular choice. And we got to replace this floppy drive. I mean, this floppy drive is hideously ugly. It doesn't even have a faceplate on it. So I found this for really cheap. We're gonna stick that one in as well. And yeah, while we're at it, let's do something about this case. I mean, I hate this case. This case is ugly. I call it the flower power case. I mean, it's hideous, and this is literally something I had just sitting around years ago and used it for this system, but it's gotta go. And this is gonna be the case I replace it with. Yeah, this one is literally perfect for this build. This screams Windows 98. Beige, plain, awesome. And I found this at a local computer shop for $10, and it was literally sitting in the corner with a bunch of stuff piled on it, because who else would be looking for a case like this except someone like me? This case is filthy. It needs a lot of cleaning up, but it also needs some modification, because this is the one and only fan spot on this case. One rear exhaust, 80mm. There's no front intake whatsoever for a fan to go. The power supply has an intake and an outtake there, so that will help a little bit, but we got to get some more airflow in here. So let's do some case mods while we're at it. So the plan right now is to cut a big rectangular hole right here and leave enough of a space for two 80mm fans to go side by side. Because it has these two cutouts right here, I can't really put any screws in the middle, so I'm just going to zip tie the two inner holes together and then screw in, drill 4 holes on the outsides for the 4 outer screw positions. And that should hold it in there pretty well. At the front of the case, there is literally no ventilation though, so that's another problem that I have to address. Underneath the case, you can see there's 2 small holes to allow air to come in. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to enlarge this hole here at the bottom. The front plastic panel is also angled up slightly off the floor so that it can allow for more airflow, but I'm going to go a step further and actually replace the feet on this case as well with these, which are more than twice as thick. It's going to raise this off the floor even further. I have just a hardwood floor anyway, so that also helps. And that should allow for more air to come in. It's still going to be limited. This is still by no means ideal. They will be held back by the lack of ventilation, but this is the best I can do without changing the look of the case too much or without really spending any more money on this project. And lastly, I'm not sure how well this is showing up on camera, but this front panel is all plastic and very much yellowed, so we got to do some retro brighting to get that closer to the original color here. So what follows is the worst filming ever for a case restoration. Here I'm just clearing out some dust with some compressed air. Then it's time to give the plastic parts a bath. I just filled a container with water and then poured a full bottle of hydrogen peroxide into that. I needed to get these stickers off before dunking the front panel in. I'm not going to be putting a Pentium 4 in there, needless to say. I found there still wasn't enough fluid, so I had to add yet more water. Then I weighed it down with a glass cup and covered the whole thing in saran wrap. Then it was off to get a reverse tan. I needed to remove the CD-ROM drive and clean it off. I then decided to remove the faceplate just in case it was working. It would be worth doing some de-yellowing to that too. Then it was time for a deeper cleaning. Every surface was covered in dust and or gunk. I needed to wipe off both the outside and in, as many crevices as I could get to. Oh no, please don't copy this OEM Windows XP key. The various stickers of course left residue, which required some Goo Gone, and then it was back to dusting again. These metal flaps had to go. I'm not sure what went there originally, but I decided to use the top and bottom edges of these holes and cut out the remaining metal in the center and sides. I needed to trace an outline of the fans to create a paper guide. Then I tapped some dents where I needed to drill and got out the Dremel. I really should have taken out the front speaker first as it collects metal dust, but oh well, I like to create more work for myself. I poked out the pins holding in the bottom feet and enlarged the holes slightly. The new feet popped in nice and snug with no issues. Now let's see how the front panel turned out. The camera makes it look better than it is in real life. I diluted the peroxide so much that it only made a small difference. It helped a little, but the top is still fairly yellow and the CD faceplate fared even worse. Lesson learned, but I'm not going to worry about it. Then it was time to enlarge the air intake hole at the bottom. It started raining outside, so I had to move the operation indoors. But this was one of the simplest parts of the mod, and it turned out quite satisfyingly. I actually had a couple brand new Masscool 80mm fans to use sitting in my parts bin for several years. I just needed to zip tie them together and fit them in place. Here it is with the front panel on. Yep, still yellow. And then the rest is just a standard PC build, although in this case with some extremely lazy camera work. now my favorite part, the add-in boards. And now we'll seal it all up in its beige tomb. Oh, and one last detail, a do-it-yourself Windows 98 sticker. So there you have the finished build. This one was a lot of fun because actually I've never really enjoyed my Windows 98 system until I built this one, because it's something that I actually customized and actually put some thought and care into, whereas the other one was just kind of slapped together because I needed a Windows 98 system. As you can probably tell, I swapped out the graphics card for a Voodoo 5. Actually, the Hercules 4000 that I had in there that you saw during the build video is seemingly not compatible with this chipset, and that does happen sometimes. Oh, there's a screw in there. The the Power VR Cairo card is tends to be pretty picky about what system you have it in. But yeah, I really like the overall, the look and everything of this system. Obviously, the optical bay drives are not matching, unfortunately, which, it looks okay, but I would definitely like those both to be the same color at some point. But, this is actually a CD burner that came off of my family's computer, my family's first computer, from a compact Presario. And this is a 4X burner, and it still works. I actually burned a CD with it just a year or so ago, just very slowly. And yeah, this optical bay drive that came with the case works as well. So did the floppy disk drive. And yeah, I mean, just in terms of look, this is really different from anything I've built before. I've gone from, a fairly old early 2000s case with my Athlon 64 rig to a completely modern case with my Core 2 Duo system, and then we're going back to something really old school with my 98 build. And people that see a beige case like this probably expect there to be like a Pentium 2 or something inside, but you have to remember my entire points, my entire goal with any of my systems I build is to have a really fast processor in there with compatibility with the graphics cards that I will be testing it. So of course the Voodoo 5 has to work in here, and so did the Rage Fury Max and everything else that I want to put in here. Unfortunately, the Hercules 4000 was an exception. I haven't tried the PCI version in here yet. I do have the PCI one that I got as a donation a while back, but otherwise this is a really good system with a 2400 plus, running at 2 gigahertz. It's tons of overhead for graphics cards like this one that don't have hardware transform and lighting. That extra CPU horsepower can actually get more and more performance out of these cards well beyond what they had when they launched. So I have been using this system for a while now, and as far as I can tell, the airflow is actually pretty good. Again, we're on a sort of linoleum faux hardwood floor here, so all that, whatever space I can get off of the floor is being taken advantage of. There's no like sinking into the carpet or anything like that that you would get if you had to deal with carpet. And yeah, these fans are extremely noisy. So this is not a quiet system at all, which is okay because again, I'm just using it for benchmarking. It's not running like all the time. And they push quite a bit of air. It comes through here and then of course goes out the exhaust in the back of the system, as well as through the power supply. So one of the more pleasant surprises with this system was the Aureal Vortex 2. These cards cost a pretty penny typically, unless you get lucky. And I paid a decent price. It wasn't like an overpriced listing or anything like that, but I did have to pay a fairly standard rate for it. Once I got all the IRQ conflicts and everything out of the way, which you have to deal with a lot with this era of hardware and Windows 98. I mean, it just works. It's actually pretty amazing. Pretty much any DOS game that I had available to test, which is going to be later DOS games, they just, the FM sound comes through and it has that, again, that wavetable header. I'm really looking forward to getting something like a Dream Blaster to put in there and really expand on the capabilities of that card. And of course you have the 3D positional audio, which is seemingly, it's just a passive feature that just seems to work in any of the 3D games that I tried. I was playing Star Wars Episode 1 Racer, and I could hear the racers coming up behind me, and as I was passing them by, it was pretty cool, using it over the headphones. So anyway, thank you very much for watching this lazily put together build video. What follows is a little bit of B-roll footage, and let me know what you think. Let me know in the comments below, what I did wrong or what you would have done differently, etc. So on, you know what to do. And yeah, until next time, thank you for watching. I'm Nathan, and this has been PixelPipes.